Hello everyone, I'm Angela Tong. I'm from Jinse Finance. And Jinse Finance is a very popular blockchain media in China. And I think maybe we are the biggest blockchain media in China. And we have launched several overseas websites. Here we call CoinTime. So now I want you to introduce you and your company first, maybe in 1 minute, because I have a lot of questions for you.
Sure thing. Okay, my name is Jason Jones. I am co-founder and an entrepreneur in residence at ConsenSys, and happy to be here.
Yeah, my name is Larry Lee, founding partner at Amino Capital in downtown Palo Alto. We invest in about over 100 companies and about 10 blockchain companies. 4 years ago, we invested in Definity and School Chain.
Hi, my name is Zach DeWitt. I'm a partner at Wing Venture Capital. Wing Venture Capital is a $500 million VC fund based in San Francisco. We focus on early stage crypto and fintech investments.
Hello, I'm Bryan. I'm the founding partner of NOC Ventures. NOC Ventures is a crypto fund. Actually, we are investing in the ICOs and trading companies.
Here's the question. Seems like you all based in US. So how do you learn about latest trends within the blockchain space in Asia?
Should we go down the road?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm an entrepreneur. That's why entrepreneur in residence. And one of my previous companies has a large presence in China. So I have about a 12-person team in Shanghai. I've been to China probably 20 times in the past 4 years, usually once a quarter. I'm going in 2 weeks. And in addition, I've been investing in Chinese internet companies since 2004, roughly, which is when the Chinese internet IPO trend started. So I've been a very active investor in Asia and in China for many years.
And most of the partners we have are from China, actually. Also, we invested 2 companies 4 years ago. One of the key person in Definity is Tom Ding. He is from Asia, from China. The other one is a School Chain. Both founders are originally from India. And also, quite a few of the key LPs we have are from Asia, from China, Singapore, and some from Hong Kong. So we have a lot of connections in Asia. And also, we have some strategic partners from Asia as well. One of my key partners is MailWeb. It's the key hosting company in Asia, which has like 10,000 nodes across Asia around the world. So we have a lot of connections there in China.
Yeah, I think to add to what Larry said, the crypto ecosystem is still relatively small, and there's still super nodes. So if you can figure out who are the thought leaders in the space, whether it's Tom Ding from Definity, who are the people that are seeing trends before they really go mainstream. So, trying to identify those quote unquote super nodes, particularly in Asia, and spend time with them, get to know what projects they're excited about, get to know what projects they're advising. I think that's still the best way in industry to figure out trends, is identify the best and brightest and try to spend time with them and help them out.
Okay, actually we are a global team. We have 4 offices. One is in Shenzhen, one in Shanghai and Silicon Valley. Another one is in Tokyo. So we have our connections over there, and we also have an advisor team in Israel, in Singapore, in Korea as well. So besides that, we also have a connection with some other crypto fund as well. So we do co-investment with them together, and we're also trying to recommend our portfolios to them as well. So this is like a win-win situation. We believe the market is still small. We have still, can doing something together to make it big. Yeah.
Since you all know Asia well, maybe for the Asian market, what are the specific strategies to better connect the 2 places? So,
Can you repeat that? What's the what?
Yeah. these two. For the Asian market, what are
This one?
special strategies
Better?
to better?
Okay.
Yeah.
Ways to connect the two markets. Absolutely events like this, right? So places where the two cultures can come together and share in idea creation. I would say that I travel around the world, and the two economies that are most exciting, most dynamic are the US and China. You have both cultures have experienced a technology IPO boom. And as a result, they have generated a second generation of entrepreneurs that are funded by the first generation. That the culture of risk-taking, of the ability to innovate, and the ability to take chance is very unique to these two cultures. They're both driven cultures, they're both educated cultures, and they're both, I think at this point, both cultures are pushing each other in advancement. And I think that's great for both cultures. So I think the more that we can communicate and work together, the better it is for both China and for the US.
Yeah, event like this definitely help a lot. Also, we travel a lot. So we have been to China like almost 10 times a year, so it's really tiring. We have to do it because the markets are so different. Like in US, the technology is definitely ahead. In Asia, there's a lot of additional ideas, but may not be the original idea, but the additional new ideas add on, and lots of money, a lot of crypto wealth going on. Also, actually, don't forget Europe. Europe has a very special, very stable, talented workforce, and so lots of good blockchain companies has a branch in Germany, in other part of Europe. So Europe, US, and Asia, three parts are integrated. If you want to run a really good crypto project.
Yeah, one of the things that's most exciting about this space is how global it is. You have Chinese investors invest in American projects and vice versa. And I think really having cross-border teams helps strengthen the connections between the two technology cultures. We recently made an investment in an American company. Both founders are natively Chinese, went to Tsinghua University, and we've spent a lot of time helping them recruit and talk to potential hires in the Chinese markets. So having cross-border teams helps further strengthen the connection. And I'm very excited to see how this global technology really continues to connect cultures and break down barriers as well.
Actually, we are doing the same thing like that. The team in China, actually, they will recommend a lot of projects to us, and we will try to select the information from that part. And in US, we're also trying to collaborate with some labs over there. So we're trying to follow up with what happened in universities, in the labs, and try to get more information in that part. Yeah. Mm.
So, in your opinion, what are the three main characteristics of Asian market in comparison to the Silicon Valley? Maybe from Bryan. Yeah.
From me?
Yeah.
Okay. You mean the three characteristics?
Yeah, three main characteristics of Asia market.
I think the Asia market is not a unified market. It's very different what happened in Japan, in Korea, and in China. So in Japan, it's a very, they have very clear regulation. The investors and the people that they can buy the cryptocurrencies like bitcoins with fiat, with the fiat money. But if you go to China, it's totally different. It's ICOs and all the cryptocurrencies are banned there. But I think the opportunity is still there. Even I think the three measures, what happened in China is the investors in China is very speculative. They only care about the price. When the ICO will go to the crypto exchanges, that's the first thing they really care about. And the second one is about the regulation. The government seems to still trying to ban all the ICOs and the cryptocurrency stuff. But there's some rumors in the market. There's something like there's trying to make it more open for the blockchain and the cryptocurrency in the future. And the third one is I think there are more and more developers and ICOs are coming from China, and the U.S. is leading in the technology, but China is leading in the business model. I don't know whether you heard of one of the project named Ifcoin. It's one of the crypto exchanges recently. It's quite famous, getting really popular in China. And so it has been #1 in the world as a crypto exchanges. And the business model is like the transaction is mining, and it's really brand new idea in the market. I think this is one of the business model coming out from China, and it will be really copied by some other exchanges as well. So it's very exciting market in the future. So I think we have a lot of things to discuss together to put see some as a different perspective. Yeah.
I think one other difference too has been the volume of trading. The Asian markets have been a lot more invested in active trading. I think the U.S. market has been actively trading as well, but there's more regulations, there's more uncertainty, and I think that's one observation, especially talking to a few of my Chinese friend investors based in China. Just the volume of trading is quite different between the Asian markets and the U.S.
Yeah, so I echo what you're saying, both in terms of the volume and in terms of business model innovation, which is very, very good. On the other hand, there's one more thing is in China, or in Asian market, the people who involved are very diversified. Like in US, mostly are geek, and then technology people, and then a little financial people from Wall Street start to get involved. But in Asia, people get involved from all over the place. People with lots of money, people with no money, everybody wants to rush into this so-called gold rush. So the impact on the society is a lot more important. So that's why the Asian government, especially the Chinese government, has been very careful because they don't want to cause any social unrest because of the market fluctuation. So this is something, if you work in the Asian market, you have to work closely with the government of each place.
Yeah, I would say that over the past 20 to 30 years, China has experienced tremendous growth, and as a result, individuals have experienced tremendous wealth creation. So now if you look at China, you have a population of 1.3 billion people, but the National Credit Bureau only has 300 million people in it, which means that there's 1 billion people in China that do not have a credit profile. And of those 1 billion people that don't have a credit profile, there are hundreds of millions, probably 200 to 300 million, that you would consider middle class or even upper middle class that have discretionary spending and wealth to invest. That's an amazing market. That's the size of America. Amazing, huge market that is untapped. The banks in China are not designed for consumers. They're designed for building real estate towers or funding roads and bridges. They're not designed for consumers. And as a result, you have this massive opportunity that every consumer internet-based company or consumer company in China is going for. So in China, you have this huge fintech opportunity that's probably 5 times the size of any other country, 5 times the size of the US fintech market. And that's because this huge market of unbanked people are available for financial services. So you have everything from media companies, Sina and Sohu, entering the financial services market. You have travel companies, Ctrip, even HNA entering the fintech market. You have real estate companies like Dalian Wanda or Greenland entering. You obviously have search, e-commerce, and social with Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu. Everyone's entering the fintech market, and it's because every one of those companies has a profile on consumers. They have proprietary data on consumers that they think they can leverage now to provide financial services. The Chinese market has this opportunity. Like I said, there's this discretionary wealth, and these companies are offering wealth management services to them. So what we've seen are all these types of companies entering, and then we also have seen the growth, or the rise of wealth management in China. You have companies like Noah and CreditEase and Lufax that have done a tremendous job of growing from nothing to huge companies over the past 5 years. You have an IPO cycle that's coming where you're going to see in the next 18 months the largest fintech companies in the world are all going to go public in Hong Kong. Obviously, Ant Financial is going to be the biggest, but then you have Lufax and you have Dianrong and you have some others in the pipeline there that are going to be really interesting. So when you put it all together, you have this retail market. China is dominated by a retail investment market that's being served by newly formed wealth management companies. And with that, you have people who are not all that sophisticated in terms of risk and reward. And there's a culture in China of chasing the next big thing, finding the next unicorn, right? That's the Chinese culture, right? Finding the next unicorn. That's dangerous. I mean, it's good, but it's also dangerous. And as a result, I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen the government take such a hard stance on crypto, is because of that kind of get-rich-quick kind of attitude in China. On one hand, it's healthy, risk is healthy. On the other hand, it can be very hurtful if you put all of your net worth or all of your savings into a highly risky company. So I think we're going through an evolution of investing in China right now that's unique, but is massive. And as a result, once we get through this phase, I think we will end up with a giant market that will be allocating capital not only to Chinese companies but globally in an efficient way. But right now, it's a little rocky.
Yeah, it's very different between Asia and here. Yeah, but I want to ask, what main consensus have been reached between two places here and Asia, and what new consensus do we want to reach?
What's the question?
What main consensus have been reached between two places, and what new consensus do we want to reach?
What new?
The consensus about Asia and here, the market.
Like consensus mechanisms? Is that what you're talking
The
about?
consensus between the two areas.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. Does anybody else want to try and answer that one?
I think right now both sides believe that there's a huge opportunity in blockchain, and also initially people in the Chinese side, and they think the technology is good, the coin, the token is bad. I think little more and more people realize, even from the government side, that the token side actually is a very integral part of this blockchain technology. Blockchain is not only about technology. I think people in Asia start to realize that as well. That's one concern. Secondly is, I think we all realize that for all those public chains, eventually they might be segmented public chains in China, just like what's happened between Google and Baidu. So no matter how integrated and how distributed, looks like you have a segmented so-called public chain in China as well, which is more working closely with the government, while the rest of the world has their own consensus and a public chain. So in that case, you do have an opportunity doing the same thing in two different markets. So that depends on how you operate. Like yesterday, I was at Cosmo, and so they are working closely with a Chinese partner called Irish, and Irish doing a lot more things in China, but on the code base of Cosmo. So it's more challenging, but it offers two opportunities for every single project.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. All these projects, or most of these projects, are open source. So you'll see technology borrowed, copied, and as Larry, as you were talking about, it's about how you operate it and what types of ecosystem you build around that technology. So technology may start to become a bit commoditized in an open source world, but I think it's really going to be, in terms of forming a consensus between the U.S. and In Asia, it's really going to be about a connected ecosystem, and I think some of the work that Jason's doing with ConsenSys will hopefully continue to bring the two cultures together in terms of a productive build on top of the core tech right now.
Okay, I think the basic consensus between the two areas, the Asian market or the US market, has been reached by the government. It means the government really believes the blockchain, no matter the Chinese government or Japanese government or even the US government, they really believe in the blockchain technology. They believe it will be the future. But the problem is what they consider about the tokens, the ICOs. So I think the next challenge for the industry is that it will be really critical. How is the performance of our public chains and the infrastructures in the next year? So if the public chain really get a breakthrough, I think it will be a good timing for the whole industry in next year. No matter for the Chinese government or for the Chinese market or the US market, it will have a lot of new opportunities and new unicorns or something coming out in the future. Yeah.
So do you want to answer? Okay. So I have a question for you, and what measures you taking in order to create a better connection between Asia's project and US capital in order to create a worldwide blockchain ecosystem?
Is it specifically about ConsenSys, my company?
Yeah.
Okay. So ConsenSys has been growing like crazy. We're currently at about 900 people, and it's a decentralized company. So we have people all over the world. And in Asia, we've spent a lot of time in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Australia. We're building out a presence in Tokyo and in Seoul somewhat. We don't have a large presence there yet. And China is a really important market. We don't have a great strategy for entering China yet. We are working on that. And we know that obviously we want to support the Ethereum ecosystem. And to the extent that Chinese companies want to build on Ethereum, we want to talk to them. So we don't have, I personally have had success in entering the Chinese market and building businesses in China, but ConsenSys is just on the verge of trying to figure out their Chinese strategy. Joint ventures are often a good strategy for market entry, but we just want to proceed carefully and cautiously and make sure when we do enter, we do it the right way.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, what is a decentralized company? Is it decentralized location or decentralized organization?
What's that?
You just mentioned you are a decentralized company, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
What does that mean?
Is location or?
Very good question. Our CEO, Joe Lubin, is a believer in decentralization and believes that the company is built by the employees. So the employees have the responsibility for the future of ConsenSys. And as a result, we have a highly innovative culture that continues to grow and expand in ways that are unplanned, and take advantage of market opportunities that make themselves available all over the world.
Okay.
For Larry, yeah. When connecting to Asian market, do you have a different procedure to evaluate a project? What kind of industry are more attractive and promoting in Asia market?
Connecting.
Yeah. Connecting to Asia market.
Okay.
Do you have a different
strategy?
Yeah.
I think investment, especially the early stage investment, is about it's local business. You really have to know the people really well. So in this blockchain era, it's really challenging because the team, as you mentioned, is decentralized. but we still want to meet the key person in person. And this becomes challenging. You have to travel a lot. Also, the language is different, right? I don't mean the Chinese English, but the way they talk about business, the way they talk with their potential about technology, you have to interpret it in a very different way. In Asia, a lot of things get magnified. So, for example, Vitali here is just a Vitali, right? In Asia, in Chinese, they call V God. He become a god. It's just crazy. It's just another person. But in US, it's just Vitali, right? So a lot of things got amplified. And also, an expert, if you see this experts in blockchain in Asia, then you really need to look at this. This guy probably only have about 4 or 3 months of experience. He's an expert. And it's very different. Here you have like 3 or 4 years, then we call him expert, right? So you have to interpret it, what they say in a different way. And it's no good or bad, it's just how you make the judgment. How to do that? You have to tell those in person, and then you see exactly what they did. So that's a really challenging part, but you have to do it, right? Because this is a global economy and global opportunity. And also the way they valued the investor in a very different way. In Asia, particularly in China, the so-called well-known people becoming very important, right? They stand up on the stage, and then these coins just amplify like 100 times. In US, it will more look in the technology side to see exactly how much have you done. But people don't learn, right? Like that's why a human being we always have like every 10 or 20 years has a major financial crisis because we don't learn. Right? So 100 years ago we have a tulip in Netherlands, but tulip can worth a house, right? Right now, it's a similar thing happens. One few white papers worth more than a house. so people don't learn. So we have to really interpret how and why and exactly what they're talking about. Then we decide if we invest or not. And this thing saying now, say in crypto space, money is the least important things, right? That's the problem because because you are basically when you do ICO, you are printing monies. That's exactly what's happening. You're printing monies, but if you think the dollars is not worth the money, then your ICO worth money. Something's wrong here. So you really have to identify the really very few good projects. Otherwise, it's a deep hole everybody get into. So you really have to be very careful in terms of interpret what people are talking about. Yeah.
Thank you. And for Bryan, according to your relevant experience, please tell us why you choose to do a lot of work as a connector between the two regions and why it is important to do media and promotion in the field of blockchain.
Okay, so let's go back to the IPO. If a company actually, if they want to do the IPO, they still need some assistance from the investment banking. So I think for the service, for the consulting and advisory services, it's also important for the ICO part. Because ICO is faster, and the time is more, shorter than the IPO part. So it means if they want investors, they want to know something about the project or about the team and about the technology. They have to, the project part have to approach the users or investors through different ways. So this is what we are doing right now. We help our portfolios and our clients to make the noise, to make the voice in the market, so that more people know about it. So they don't need to really watch the white paper. They just get some information from the market, from the media, and from the influencers. And they can make even from the listing website. So they can get some information and, to make some judge about it. So this is what we are doing right now. And I think in the future, it's more than 1,000 tokens in the listed market or website, and there are more coming. So it means in the future, no matter the institutional investors or the individuals, they don't really have time to watch every white paper. So it should be someone to make the things like that. So we are trying to do the hub in the media and between the projects under the investors and the public. Yeah, so this is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you. And for Zach, many experts state that China and US are in the same racing track in the field of blockchain technology. What is your opinions on that? And what are the advantages and the disadvantages of the two sides? And how could you contact the two places to boost a better technological communication?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, just an observation, in some ways, the Asian markets are a year ahead of the US markets, particularly around some of the innovations in mining, some of the innovations around the exchanges. I mean, Bryan talked about F-Coin. It's a very different type of business model, different type of exchange. On the other hand, the US is ahead of some of the Asian innovations, particularly around some of the smart contract platforms. Larry talked about Definity. There's some really Algorand, some really strong projects coming out of the US. It's funny, I spent some time over the past couple of days just Googling. If you just Google, China, US, blockchain, just those three words, the first two articles that come up are US versus China, blockchain wars. China leads the US in patent applications. The blockchain arms race, America versus China. So everything seems to be antagonistic in terms of the U.S. versus Asia versus China, and that certainly is dangerous, especially when in the media when it's spun like that, because there are a lot of projects that are collaborating across the Pacific, and hopefully that continues to be the trend. So in terms of how that will continue, I think as long as you have investors that are favoring projects or supporting projects that are multi-geography, that trend will continue, and hopefully the headlines change from the antagonistic U.S. versus China arms race to more collaborative work over time.
Totally agree with that sentiment. Am I on? Yeah. I totally agree with that sentiment. The media is so antagonistic, but the reality, at least on the ground, I find there's so much interest in collaboration, and there's opportunities to collaborate, and I hope that we continue to find ways to push that forward. But I do think that the competition between both countries is very healthy for both countries as well.
Okay, so what is the biggest challenge when connecting to Asian market? Is it about regulation, capital, trust, or something else?
What's
The challenge.
biggest challenge?
Yeah.
I would probably say the biggest challenge is execution. It's so many big ideas that have easily raised money that now must prove themselves, which is the opposite of how most venture capital works. But we're in a nice window right now where ideas matter, but that will close eventually, and then we'll be all about execution. So we'll see which companies can actually take capital that they've raised and put the plan in place that they have promised. I think that's the biggest risk. Of course, regulation's out there. Regulation is something that must be understood and must be worked around, worked with, I guess is the proper way to say it. So I think execution's the biggest risk.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's a lot of good things happening, right? So people trade the resources and optimize the resources across the national boundary, which is very good. But for investor perspective, also actually for the team leader, is how to organize these people and work effectively. We heard team like they have 100 people in 3 locations, and as investor, we went to all 3 locations. It just doesn't add up. So how can we evaluate those kind of project, right? Because the valuation is very high, and they claim have lots of people. You just don't see them. So that's the challenging I'm facing. It's real, and that's how I see the bubble, and I see the very dangerous trend here. I hope people who raise money can put their effort and the time and energy to really work on it. Because if most of the project is going to be like air, we don't have a lot of talent in terms of blockchain, right? It's this new thing. So with so much money involved, and you don't see the people working on it, and the numbers don't add up, that's the challenge I have and we are facing. So we're really working very hard We're reading the white paper page by page. We do want to see the people really implement those wonderful ideas. So that's the challenge I'm facing.
Yeah, to add to what Jason was saying about execution, I think the other side of that, the same coin, is consumer preference, and they're very different. So in Asian markets, you see mobile wallets be adopted, like IMT token. In the US, you see more desktop-based wallets, like MyEther wallet adopted. So based on consumer preference, the markets have different consumer preference, which will require different execution and different strategy. And also regulation. I mean, regulation, I don't think either side fully understands the cross-border regulations. If you hold more than $10,000 as a U.S. citizen in your Binance account, you have to file that with U.S. taxes as part of your U.S. tax report. So there's so many nuances in terms of the regulation that I think both Asian investors and American investors, don't realize yet. So hopefully there's more kind of regulatory certainty and disclosure and transparency that helps foster, more direct collaboration.
I think the biggest challenge right now, if you go to the Asian market, will be the culture and language. If you go to China or go to Korea, actually they use different social application. In China, we use WeChat. In Korea, I even don't know the name actually. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
Kakao Talk.
Okay, so it means the social groups is totally different. In China, if you want to use a Telegram, it really takes time. You have to use the VPN first, and you connect VPN, then you use the Telegram, and there will be the thousands of messages will coming out. You will be really happy about it. So in China, if you want to communicate with people to get more, efficient way, you have to use the WeChat in that way. So you cannot really, to use a general, way to approach people there. And the second thing I believe is it's not only in Asian market or in the US market. I think it's a general problem. For the crypto fund in the future, only the top fund will be surviving in the market, or maybe your fund has some unique resources. Because right now it's a bear market, right? As I know, some of the crypto fund right now, they cannot really get enough money if you make the fundraising. So it means in the future, some small one and even some medium one, if you don't have your unique advantage, you don't be on the top, I think it would be really dangerous for them to lose the market. Even, let's say, right now, Thunder Token, Algorand, everyone, they're really, in my opinion, they're really overvaluation. They would be 1 billion even, it's really, crazy. So it means in the future, if you want to get a good project, you have to go inside from the very early stage. But you can see in the market, everyone is go to FBG, everyone go to Danhua Capital. It means the small capital, the small fund, they only can be, follow them in the second or even the third round. It means in Chinese we call it 韭菜. Right? Everyone know that. Yeah, so it's a big challenge for our crypto fund in the future.
So because we are out of time, maybe the last question. Let's talk about the investment in the Asian blockchain market. What the future of the Asian market, and where do you think it will be within 1 year?
The Asian market?
Unicorn.
I already mentioned that the IPOs are teed up. So I think from the public markets perspective, there's going to be more and more attention on the Chinese markets. In the crypto space, we are seeing more and more government activity, which may indicate that we could see additional regulatory activity in the next year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 years out, though. That's just my guess.
Well, at least every 6 months, there will be a big security problem on exchange. So that definitely will happen again within not only 1 year, probably within 6 months. That's always happens. So that's defined by the human nature. When there's enough money in that secret pot, people just get their hands into it. So that's going to happen as before. Secondly, the public chain side will have some shakedown. I think right now people start to realize most of the public chain may not take off because they don't have a killer app. So you can see right now the killer app become the king. And right now we're investing a few killer apps, supposed to be killer app, and they were kind of approached by several public chains. They gave them money, try to get them on. So eventually I think the public chain will like AWS, where a good public chain coming out of killer app. Amazon's AWS now is not coming out of nowhere. It's because it's designed, used again by Amazon themselves. And then they fine-tune the system, and then they come up with a cloud computing platform, become AWS. Most of the public chains, they don't have a lot of things built in. Number one, of course, is performance. Secondly, is those smart contracts. Oh, this smart contract is not there yet, it's not been tested. So eventually, a blockchain or public chain will coming out of killer app. That's going to be the trend, very obvious, very soon, because all those public chains without killer app is going to be becoming very difficult to survive. That's what I see in the next couple of years or within 1 year.
Yeah, I think that the Asian technology markets will continue to look to the US for ideas and innovation, especially in this open source environment. But I do think in terms of what I talked about with mining and exchanges, the Asian markets being a bit ahead of the US, I think that gap may actually widen as the US is under a lot of regulatory scrutiny. And there may be more innovations in the Asian exchanges that will further distance them from some of the US exchanges.
Okay, let me follow up with Larry's topic. I think the killer app is more focused on the 2C side. If you go to the, let's say, when we talk about the blockchain, we can divide it into 2B and 2C. Actually, it's very mature in 2B side. In the banking system, in the financial system, and even in the tracking, scenario. In the logistic, is very. I think they already have some very, very good use case over there. But when we talk about the killer app, it means there's someone go to the consumer with a big user base. They have like the popular application or something like that. I think in next year it will be a Chinese year, because in China we have very large, big. It's not sorry. It's we have many developers over there from the internet industry. I was in Baidu for 4 years, so I know it very well. In China, there's a lot of developers. They're developing the application for the global market. Some of them, they already have a big user base in India, in US, in Southeast Asia. So when this kind of developers, they transfer to blockchain, it means they can understand the users from the overseas, outside China, and they also have the ability to develop the application with the international language. They can also understand the user behavior, and they have a very big user base over there. It means they are really competitive in the next stage. So I think the next killer app will be coming from China. One of our portfolio, they have very big user base, as I mentioned to Jason. The application is a P2P transferring application. Right now they have 450 million users globally, and 120 million monthly active users. So they were trying to transfer to the blockchain right now. I don't think it's any other application in the blockchain who has that kind of user base. So this is one of the example. Another one is LiveMe. It's quite famous in US. It's a live show application. And, I think they will do a ICO quite soon. So this is another one example. All of them are from China. So if you go to the next killer app, or the expectation in the coming year, I think the app developers from China will be a really good opportunity for them. Yeah. So this is my perspective.
Thank you, everyone. So that's all.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.